Hello everyone, welcome to English Meow. Today I'm going to share Anna's journey of learning English with you. Let's explore the methods she used to learn while listening to her slow-paced English reading.
My name is Anna, and my story with English listening began not in a classroom, but on a journey. Ever since I was a child, I dreamed of traveling the world. I would look at maps for hours, tracing the lines of borders, imagining the faces of people who lived far away, and wondering what languages they spoke. Growing up in a small town, my exposure to English was minimal. At school, we had basic lessons, mostly reading grammar books and memorizing vocabulary lists, but I never heard real people speak English. To me, English sounded like a song in the background of movies, beautiful but unreachable. When I turned 21, I saved enough money to take my first trip abroad. I went to Thailand, a place I had long admired for its beaches and culture. I thought English would not be a big issue because I already knew many words on paper. But as soon as I landed at the airport, I realized how wrong I was. The announcements over the speakers sounded like fast, endless streams of sound. Taxi drivers asked me questions I could not answer. At the hotel, when the receptionist spoke kindly but quickly, I froze. My cheeks burned with embarrassment. I managed to check in, but inside, I felt defeated. That first trip taught me something important. Travel does not just open doors to new places, it also exposes your weaknesses. I realized that if I wanted to keep traveling and truly experience other cultures, I needed to improve my English listening. Reading menus or writing messages was not enough. I wanted to talk with locals, understand stories, and connect with other travelers. Most of them used English as a bridge language, and I felt like an outsider every time I could not follow a conversation. So, when I returned home, I promised myself I would not give up. I bought a pair of cheap earphones and started listening to English every day. At first, I used podcasts for beginners. The slow pace and clear pronunciation felt manageable. I would listen while cooking, cleaning, or riding my bicycle to work. Sometimes I replayed the same 5-minute episode 10 times, trying to catch every single word. Still, whenever I met tourists in my town and tried to talk, I realized that real conversations were far harder than the clean voices from podcasts. People used slang, different accents, and spoke faster than I expected. One evening, I met a German traveler in a cafe who asked me about local attractions. He spoke English, but his accent was very different from what I had practiced. At first, I panicked, but then I forced myself to focus not on every word, but on the main idea. Slowly, I understood what he wanted, and I managed to give him directions. When he thanked me with a smile, I felt proud. That small moment became my first real success in English listening, and it motivated me to keep going. I began to design a study plan for myself. I made a list of TV shows I wanted to watch and decided to watch them in English, even if I only understood half. I also downloaded audiobooks and listened before sleeping. Sometimes I drifted off to sleep without understanding much, but I told myself that my brain was still getting used to the sounds. I also wrote down phrases I often heard but did not understand, then searched their meaning the next day. Little by little, I noticed progress. One day, while waiting for a bus, I overheard two tourists speaking. To my surprise, I understood that they were discussing which restaurant to try. I almost laughed out loud because I realized that just months earlier, such casual conversation would have sounded like meaningless noise. Now, it was clear. My second trip abroad was to Spain. By then, I'd been practicing English listening for about a year. I felt more confident than before, but once again, reality surprised me. On the plane, the flight attendant spoke English with a Spanish accent, and I struggled to follow their instructions. In the hostel, travelers from different countries gathered in the lounge and shared their experiences. Everyone spoke English, but each in a unique way. Some with heavy French tones, others with Australian slang, and some mixing words with their native language. For the first 2 days, I mostly listened in silence, nodding and smiling, afraid that if I opened my mouth, I would reveal how little I understood. But something changed on the third day. I joined a free walking tour around Barcelona. The guide spoke English quickly, and at first it felt overwhelming. Yet, I forced myself to focus on key words: cathedral, history, Gaudi. Slowly, I pieced together the meaning. At one stop, the guide asked if anyone had questions. My heart raced, but I raised my hand and asked about the mosaic tiles on a building. To my surprise, not only did he understand me, but I also understood his answer. I even laughed at his little joke. That moment felt like a victory, as if I had climbed a small mountain. After Spain, I realized that real progress came not from studying alone in my room, but from throwing myself into situations where listening was unavoidable. I started joining online communities where travelers shared experiences in English. Sometimes I joined video calls just to listen, even if I barely spoke. I kept a notebook where I wrote down new phrases, like off the beaten path, or bucket list, which I had never seen in textbooks. Every time I recognized one of these phrases in conversation, I felt as though I had discovered a hidden treasure. Music also became a big part of my learning. I loved listening to songs in English, especially ones with clear lyrics. At first, I read the lyrics while listening, but later I challenged myself to recognize lines without reading. Singing along was difficult, but it trained my ears to pick up sounds and rhythms that I had missed before. I remember one rainy evening in Madrid when a street musician played a famous English song. To my surprise, I could understand most of the lyrics, and I joined in singing quietly. It felt magical, as if English was no longer just a foreign tool, but a living language connecting strangers in the rain. I also learned to use mistakes as stepping stones. One time, I tried to ask a shopkeeper if the store accepted cards, but I mixed up card with cart. She looked confused, and I repeated the wrong word twice. Finally, she understood and corrected me gently. Instead of feeling embarrassed, I laughed and repeated the right word aloud several times. That small correction stayed in my memory, and from then on, I never confused the two again. The more I traveled, the more I realized that listening in English was not about catching every word, but about finding meaning. In conversations, people often repeated themselves, used gestures, or rephrased ideas. I began to relax and trust that even if I missed a sentence, I could still follow the conversation. This shift in mindset reduced my anxiety and gave me more courage to participate actively. By the time I planned my third trip, I had been practicing English, listening seriously, for nearly 2 years. This time, I went to New Zealand, a country known for its natural beauty and friendly locals. I thought I was prepared, but New Zealand accents proved to be a new challenge. On my first day in Auckland, I went to a cafe and ordered a coffee. The barista's words flew past me in a strong accent, and I had to ask him to repeat several times. Initially, I felt frustrated, thinking that my progress had vanished. But then I remembered my previous experiences: Spain, Thailand, and all the hours of podcasts, audiobooks, and music. I slowed down, focused on keywords, and managed to get my order right. That small success reminded me that persistence pays off. During this trip, I made a conscious effort to practice listening in every possible context. I joined guided hikes, where the guide gave explanations about the local flora and fauna. At first, I missed much of the information, but I wrote down the words I didn't understand and looked them up later. Over time, I began to follow along more easily. I also attended a small language exchange group for travelers and locals, where participants spoke only in English. Some had accents I had never encountered, while others spoke rapidly. Each conversation forced me to rely on context, intonation, and body language, which helped me develop a more flexible listening ability. One memorable experience occurred while staying in a small village on the South Island. I went to a local market to buy some fresh fruit. The vendor asked about my preferences in a fast, casual way, mixing slang and local expressions. My heart raced, but I remembered to focus on the words I did know, the tone of his voice, and the gestures he used. By the end, I had understood enough to buy exactly what I wanted and even complimented him on the produce. He smiled warmly, and I felt a surge of confidence. It was moments like these that turned English from a challenge into a tool for real-life connection. Back home, I continued to expand my listening practice. I discovered TED Talks on diverse subjects such as psychology, history, and science. I also started transcribing short clips from interviews and repeating sentences aloud to practice shadowing. This method helped me not only understand words, but also internalize rhythm, stress, and pronunciation. Listening became active rather than passive. My brain learned to predict what words might come next and connect ideas, even if I didn't hear every single word clearly. Music, travel, and real-life conversations all combined to accelerate my progress. I remember sitting in a hostel lounge in Wellington, overhearing a conversation between travelers from 4 different countries. To my amazement, I could follow nearly every sentence. Not only that, I joined in the discussion confidently. In that moment, I realized that all my years of struggle, the podcasts, audiobooks, repeated listening, shadowing, and note-taking had transformed my listening skill completely. I also learned the importance of patience. Improvement in listening is often slow and subtle. Sometimes days of practice felt like no progress at all. Other times, understanding a fast conversation or a joke made me realize that I had been improving quietly all along. This taught me to trust the process, to keep practicing, and to celebrate even the smallest victories along the way. By the time I returned home from New Zealand, my English listening skills had grown beyond what I had imagined 2 years earlier. I could now follow conversations with native speakers, enjoy movies and series without subtitles, and even participate in international online forums with confidence. The journey had not been easy, but every struggle, every repeated audio clip, and every awkward conversation contributed to my growth. I realized that listening in English was not merely about understanding words. It was about connecting with people, culture, and ideas in a meaningful way. One of the most important lessons I learned is that mistakes are essential. I often misheard words or phrases, misunderstood jokes, or got confused in rapid conversations. Initially, these mistakes frustrated me, but over time, I began to treat them as opportunities to learn. I kept a small notebook where I recorded expressions I misheard or could not understand. Reviewing it regularly helped me notice patterns, and soon my comprehension improved significantly. Mistakes were no longer signs of failure. They were signposts pointing me toward areas that needed attention. In addition to formal practice, I embraced English in my daily life. I changed the language settings on my phone, followed English-speaking travel bloggers on social media, and listened to English podcasts while cooking or commuting. Sometimes I sang along with songs to improve pronunciation and reinforce auditory memory. Even seemingly small activities accumulated into a powerful learning routine. I learned that immersion, even in small doses, can have a tremendous impact over time. Travel remained a major motivator. Every new destination was both a challenge and an opportunity to test my skills. In Japan, I could follow instructions in airports. In Germany, I could participate in casual conversations at cafes. In Italy, I understood guided tours and could ask questions without hesitation. Each successful interaction reinforced my confidence and reminded me why I had embarked on this journey in the first place. Listening was no longer an obstacle, but a bridge to experiences I had once only dreamed of. Looking back, I see that my growth did not come from a single dramatic breakthrough, but from consistent, deliberate effort over time. Listening practice became a part of my identity. I celebrated every small victory, understanding a joke, catching a phrase in a fast conversation, or following an entire documentary without pausing. These moments built a sense of accomplishment that motivated me to continue, even when progress seemed slow. Today, I can enjoy English content fully. I watch films, attend international workshops, and participate in discussions confidently. But more importantly, I have learned resilience, patience, and the joy of gradual improvement. I know that listening skills are never truly finished. There will always be new accents, faster speakers, and unfamiliar vocabulary. Yet each challenge is now an exciting opportunity rather than a frightening barrier. If I could give advice to anyone starting their journey, I would say this: immerse yourself in the language, embrace mistakes, be patient, and celebrate small wins. Listen every day in every situation, and trust that improvement comes quietly, steadily, and inevitably. English listening has given me freedom, connection, and confidence. It has transformed my travels, my interactions, and even my sense of self. And most importantly, it has shown me that with persistence and curiosity, a once distant dream can become an everyday reality.
Thank you, everyone, for coming to listen to Anna's experience of learning English today. I hope that after hearing her learning journey, it will be helpful for your own English studies. But please remember, no matter what, never stop learning. One day you will see a unique version of yourself.